Okay, let's see. Maybe I should make sure that my video actually shows up as well. There you go. So today we will be covering basic stuff about, creating a resume, curriculum vitae, and a portfolio. What are their differences? And we'll differentiate them just by defining them. We'll also talk about the 10 main occupations in computer and IT. We'll be leveraging the US Bureau of Labor and Statistics to help us with that. So that's where we'll get our numbers from. After that, I'll probably see what questions you have before we dive in to learn about understanding learning paths. Learning IT is not the same as, it was back in the days, because now we do have a lot of information available to you. So we want to see how we can leverage that to be able to create and succeed in IT. And we'll also categorize knowledge, skills, and practice that we gain along the way. Finally, to stay on top of your game, you want to be able to keep up with everything about IT. So that's just it in a nutshell. Hopefully we can finish this up in 45 minutes, and it will give you enough time to ask questions at the end of the day so that we can address all your concerns. So what questions do we have?
Okay. I
Sounds
think
good.
we should let's go ahead, right?
All right. So just to go in depth again. Yes,
Go
go ahead.
ahead. Is it just on IT? Are we not going to talk more about like last week we had IT and IS, information systems?
Yes, last week we did break down that IS is the entire system. Okay, IT is just learning about the information and the technology. So IS includes the processes, the business, as well as the people. So we're not going to be talking about that because it's dependent on the industry in which you are. So if you are in an education industry, it will be different from a finance industry and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah, and computer science is very specific. That's just for, building your hardware and your software. Very good question. All right, so talking about it in depth, how we're going to proceed. Again, first thing is, let me minimize this a little bit. We're going to talk about LinkedIn. Does anybody here utilize LinkedIn?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. So you want to be able to leverage that. LinkedIn is very powerful. Obviously, it's owned by Microsoft, but that's your face to the entire world. So you want to be able to set it up so that when someone goes in there, they can grasp whatever information they need about you, not just people locally, but it's global, right? It's something that, anybody in the world can, get a snapshot of who you are. So for instance, let me jump into my LinkedIn. If I go in and say search for my name, the first search result will probably be LinkedIn. So from there, I'm not sure if I'm logged in. I believe I might be. So from there, it's going to give you, information about you per se. It talks about a few things in your domain. It has some of the features, articles that I've written, some recently and so on, your activity, your about you section. You want to update this, it's going to be like an introduction, something known as an elevator speech, something you can say very quickly about what you are, who you are, and so on and so forth. So that said, one quick nifty tool I want to show you is you can actually build your resume directly from your LinkedIn page. So from the very top where you have your information about you, it has an open add to profile section. There's a more button. If you click on that more button, you can save to PDF. If you click on save to PDF, that downloads a PDF of your resume, everything that you've inputted on LinkedIn. So if I open that up, it should look something like like that. So on the left, it has my contact information, my top skills, the languages, certifications, top certifications per se. And then it has a summary about me. So if someone asks me, who are you? From this summary, they should be able to grasp, what I am, and then it lists out your experience, So right now I've gotten a little over 2 years as a technical trainer, but already over 8.5 years as an IT consultant. Also worked as an adjunct faculty at Palo Alto College, as well as a lead systems analyst for about 1.5 years. And then United Health Group as a senior business analyst, JP Morgan Chase, the multiple roles I had in there, True Sales International, University of Colorado, Denver, Denver School of Science and Technology, and so on and so forth. And then at the end, you have the education part. So that gives you, again, 5 pages. That's a lot. In here, this would be looked at as a resume because it gives you just the brief, very concise description of what you did. So that is a resume. A curriculum vitae is more detailed, something that's going to expand. For instance, when I was at University of Colorado, Denver, what were some of the courses I took? What was my thesis topic? And so on and so forth. Those are the kind of things that you go in depth. At the University of Boya, what were some of the roles that I had? And so on and so forth. So that's going to make it more detailed. If you look at the synopsis I have for each of these schools, again, this might be more or less a curriculum vitae because it has some of the tasks or some of the job descriptions of what I actually did in those roles. So that said, that would be the difference between a resume and a curriculum vitae. Okay. Now the third one, a portfolio. Portfolio, I believe it's a Latin word, for carrying of a case, something like that. So it's actually showcasing the things that you have done. For instance, an artist or a painter will have a portfolio of all his paintings and so on. So if you're a web developer, maybe you have a link showcasing all the websites that you have developed, actually, because when you're being hired, when someone's trying to hire you, they don't want to hire you about what you know. They want to know what you can do. So if you tell them, hey, I know how to build a website, and that's, let's say everybody can watch YouTube videos and learn how to do all these things. If you go and need to fix your car and the mechanic tells you, I've watched 20 hours of video of how to fix a Toyota, and someone else tells you, I have fixed 10 Toyotas in my lifetime, who are you going to be more comfortable giving your car to be fixed? Obviously, the person that has already fixed 10 cars. So a portfolio in that case shows what you have done. Because again, in IT, most certifications, most diplomas don't really carry weight as compared to actually showing the things that you can do. Okay, so does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Awesome. So again, that's a definition. Resume, usually 1 to 2 pages, just having date, the position you had, and the location. Let's say it was in Cameroon, it was in the US, and so on. Meanwhile, a curriculum vitae is going to go in depth, to describe in detail. So normally when applying for a job, you apply with a resume. When you're actually going for an interview, it's a good idea to go with a copy of a curriculum vitae. So before they start asking you questions, you produce like, here, thank you. I know you have a copy of my resume, but I also bought a copy of my curriculum vitae that describes in detail those positions and what I actually did. And if you have things that you did, maybe you worked in a company as an electrical engineer, you had some pictures. These are some of the pictures of, working at this site and that site and so on and so forth. That makes you stand out completely compared to others who will just come in and ask, one question or another about the role. Okay.
Yeah.
So next up, let's talk about the occupations in computer science. For that, I'm going to show you a few YouTube videos And we're also going to utilize the United States Bureau of Labor and Statistics. Okay, this is a group, just like you have the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, people that have been hired to investigate crime. There's also government institution whose job is to get statistics of everything that's going on in the US and also focusing on the labor force, okay? So they do have something known as an Occupational Outlook Handbook, looking at all occupations, how they're progressing, how they were, how things will be in future. But we will focus on computer and IT occupations. Does that sound good?
Yes, I do.
So once again, everybody has a copy of this on our Google Classroom. So let me jump into that so we can talk about it in depth. So here is what the website looks like. I'm going to take you to it in a little bit, but it does explain here that employment in computer and information technology, I think I should just go in there right away. Let's do US Bureau of Labor and Statistics. Okay. So again, about the US Bureau of Labor and Statistics, here's a synopsis. The Bureau of Labor and Statistics is a principal fact-finding agency for the federal government in the broad field of labor, economics, and statistics. So that tells you that these are real numbers, okay? This is not something that anybody would come about and tell you, hey, I think, I thought, and so on and so forth. So let's go in. From there, we can actually look at careers. No, we don't want careers. Occupations is what we want to focus on. So when we look at occupations, they're broken down into different groups, okay? And different wages as well. But what we want to focus on here is Occupational Outlook Handbook. So from here, you can see the different occupational groups. The one we're focusing on is computer and information technology. There are lots and other different types of groups. There's sales, there's production, there's personal care, there's also healthcare and legal and so on and so forth. But again, our focus is computer and information technology. So from here, you can see it tells you that occupations, I should make this bigger a little bit. The occupations are projected to grow 13% from a couple years ago to 8 years, okay? It's faster than the average. Everybody knows that IT jobs are hot, right? The occupations are projected to add about almost 700,000 new jobs. Now, this is focused on the US only. Now, if you look at the world at large, it's even bigger than that, okay? And the demand for these workers stem from greater emphasis on cloud computing, collection and storage of big data, and information security. So those three, again, stand out. I don't really concentrate a lot on the amount that you get paid because obviously that varies depending on your experience and the company, the industry, and other factors. So I don't really dwell on that. But the 10 sectors that I want us to talk about are these 10 sectors right here. The first one is research scientists. So computer and information research scientists. Those are the guys with masters and PhDs that are the ones that are innovating, okay? They design and innovate, they design innovative uses and new or existing computing technology. So for right now, all the new things that are going to come up in the market are going to be designed by these folks, okay? They are innovators. So depending on the company, the industry they find themselves, those are the ones that are usually the most highly paid and they're the most qualified. The next group is network architects. For computer network architects design and build data communication networks like local area networks and wide area networks. So if you're going to start a big company, you're going to need to have computers there. You're going to need somebody that's going to design how those computers are wired together. You know, in some cases, it might be just a small office. In other cases, it might be a big institution. So if Microsoft wants to create a headquarters in, or let's say Microsoft wants to create an office in Yaoundé, they're going to need a network architect to go and draw a network layout. You know, it will be a wide area network or a local area network, and that's it, their job is done. And then someone else goes and does the installation. Now, the next set of occupations is computer programmers. These are the people that actually write code, they modify the code or they test the code to be able to allow computer software and applications. Applications, again, is known for short as apps. So all these apps that we see on our phone, all the apps or the software that you see on computers, on servers, all those things that make us do all the things that we do in technology need to be created, modified, and tested by computer programmers. The next set is computer support specialists. So these guys are maintaining computer networks and provide technical help. So it's like the help desk. When you have an issue, maybe your computer is not coming on, or maybe the sound is not working, you call these guys and they'll be able to walk you through, what your issue was. And then we have computer systems analysts. I've been in most of these roles in different capacities. So computer systems analyst studies an organization, and then it checks the computer system, designs way to improve it and make it work efficiently. Okay, so they are mostly process improvement guys. For instance, you can have a systems analyst for INEO, and they'll look at the INEO system and they'll say, you know what, it will be better for us to set things up so that the bill is every Monday or the bill is every 10th of the month, and so on and so forth. Try to make things better. Maybe set up a way that payments can be done online and so on and so forth. That's what systems analysts will do. Now, one that is very popular, everybody is talking about DBAs, database administrators and architects. So these are the guys that administration. Again, think about school. The headmaster is the one that administrates the school administration. The discipline master, those are the guys that administer the school. So database administrators, they're the ones that organize anybody's access to the data. For instance, they'll know that you are not supposed to go into this class. You're supposed to show up at school at this time, and so on and so forth. So administrators make sure that they create and organize a system that stores and secures their data. Everything runs on data, we know that. So we want to be able to have gatekeepers, people that are going to organize that data, make sure that it's also available. So they have to do backups, they have to do all this other stuff. Now, if we talk briefly about information security, and we're going to talk more about it, but information security analysts will plan and carry out security measures to protect that organization's data. Just like we said, your house, you live, you have to make sure you lock it up. Your car, you leave your car behind, you have to make sure you lock it up. So security analysts have to make sure that that lock that you have put in place is secure. It actually makes sure that your system is protected, your data is protected, your network is protected from malicious people, because trust me, there are hackers out there. There are different types of hackers. You also have competitors. Maybe Barcelona wants to hack into Real Madrid's network to be able to learn which are the players that they want to buy. Maybe Russia wants to hack into the USA network to be able to find out what the president and his team are planning, and so on and so forth. So it's not only hackers who are trying to get into your computer in terms of viruses. People are out there hunting for data, for one reason or another, whether it's for competition, whether they want to sabotage you, and so on and so forth. Okay. So next up, we have network and computer systems administrators. So what is a network? It's just a connection of computers. Okay. So these computer system administrators are responsible for the day-to-day operations of our network and your computer systems. Finally, we'll talk about software developers, quality assurance analysts, and testers. Very similar to computer programmers, but the difference is that software developers design computer applications and programs. They also test the software to make sure that it's not got any problems, it doesn't have any defects, it works perfectly as it's expected to. Finally, I think this is actually my favorite one, web developers and digital designers. So web developers create and maintain websites. I don't want to say websites, web apps, web applications. And the design, develop, create, and test other interface layouts, functions, and navigations of usability. So as you can see, there's quite a wide variety of areas in IT that you can learn yourself in. You can pick one that is you find it curious, one that you excel in, one that you think you'd enjoy doing, and by all means, you should succeed in there. If we click on any one of them, it's going to give us more details, and it also gives us a short video, okay? So for instance, the first one I clicked on was research scientist. Maybe I want to go back and click on information security analyst. Okay, so those are the guys that do cybersecurity. It gives us more in-depth information. It tells you what they do. These are the different duties. It also tells you their work environment, how you can become one, the pay, the job outlook, telling you, okay, information security analysts are going to be needed about 33%, but now the other computer populations, occupations about 13%, and so on and so forth. So that's a projected employment in about 10 years' time. And you can actually see the actual data that was collected when all of this was done. Now for the summary, before I play this video, I'm going to play another video, but again, if you navigate through all of those, I have all the notes in here for you. You should be able to see all the information that is required. Each one of these will take you to the actual link that I just opened up. So what questions do we have so far?
In terms of the careers.
Yes.
Yes, I noticed that you started from the very best. Let me say from the top.
Yes.
Yes, you started from the top right down to bottom. So to say, in case I've never done anything in IT, that I'm interested now. If I say I develop an interest in it, and I want to get into that field, where do I begin?
Very, very good question. Very, very good question. All right. So that's going to be what we'll discuss in the next part. Again, in the outline, I did mention that we'll talk about resumes, CVs, and portfolios. And then I'm going to differentiate these different computer occupations. The next thing we're going to talk about is those learning paths. Where do you begin? How do you approach this? So we'll definitely that was the perfect question for us to get a segue into our next topic. But yeah, I will definitely do my best to answer this to the fullest capacity that I can think of. Sounds good?
Yes, thank you.
Sweet, sweet. Any more questions? No more questions? Well, let's do a quick recap of what we just talked about. Computer and IT jobs. Again, this link is out there. There are 10 things that you need to know before you get into IT. And there's like 5 good things and 5 bad things. And that's a really good video that I really like. So it's out there for you guys to watch. I'm not going to go into that right now, but let's take a quick look at the overview of IT. And we'll just play this. It's a really short 1-minute video about, and then we'll carry on from there. Unfortunately, we're going to start with commercials. Everyone loves script. So I'm going to mute it so these commercials can go by and then we can proceed.
Okay. Integration of the internet in most aspects of daily life, our collective use and reliance. With the integration of the internet in most aspects of daily life, our collective use and reliance on information technology grows on a continual upward arc. Vast amounts of data stream through technology used for business operations, governance, education, and entertainment. Keeping the information flowing and equipment working properly is the job of information technology, or IT, professionals. IT offers a great variety of both creative and technical careers, from designing and developing software applications, databases, and websites to providing customer support and ensuring information security. More so than perhaps in any other industry, many IT jobs can be performed remotely as long as a reliable internet connection is available. That said, several major cities represent the highest numbers of IT job openings. San Francisco, San Jose, Seattle, Los Angeles, Dallas-Fort Worth, and Chicago. A number of smaller cities are also adding significant numbers of IT jobs, including Austin, Charleston, Charlotte, Fort Myers, and Madison. The United States is the world's largest technology market, and the industry is a major contributor to our overall economy. Quick facts to know. Almost 550,000 new IT jobs are expected in the coming years, with substantial growth in information security, software and application development, cloud computing, and data storage. Information technology jobs are well-paying, with wages that are twice as high as the national average for all occupations. The US accounts for 32% of the technology market worldwide, contributing over $1.7 trillion to the economy each year.
All right, so that was a quick fact. Do we have any questions on that? So I know the focus again is always on the US. Okay, that's where most of the data has been collected, but I can tell you that we can.
That's just what I wanted to say. That is
Awesome.
always on US. Like us in Cameroon, how are we going to go about it?
Definitely, no, there are ways that you can leverage that, and we'll talk about it, definitely. So thinking again about the world economy, we talked about the 5 biggest companies last time, FAMGA, right? Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and Apple. All those companies are in the US. All those companies are in IT. Those are the 5 companies that make up about $1.7 trillion every year. Okay, so it's huge. You have to leverage that. There's not a single day that any of us does not use these companies. All of us use these companies every day. If you check your email, you're using Google. If you go to WhatsApp, you're using Facebook. If you even go on Facebook, you're using Facebook, and if you shop a lot, you're using Amazon. If you're storing your text messages, pictures, or anything online, you're probably using Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud Services or Azure Cloud Services. So, I mean, no matter what you do, you're connected to these 5 companies somehow every day of your life. Okay, so let's go now and watch another short video about careers. I think this is a good one because from there I can actually point out again those 10 careers that we talked about. So let's check this out. Hopefully we don't have a commercial again this time around. Obviously we'll have one. And then I can skip it. Please feel free to ask any questions you have.
Job opportunities are expanding at a variety of education and experience levels in IT. Although training in computer science or software engineering can be an asset, for a number of jobs, employers are more interested in a candidate's experience, portfolio, and technical skills than in a college degree. Apprenticeships provide training on the job while you earn a salary. They are available for entry-level positions as computer operators, computer programmers, and information managers. In-demand IT jobs that require an associate's degree or bachelor's degree along with some experience include computer user support specialists, web developers, database administrators, computer network support specialists, information security analysts, data warehousing specialists, and software quality assurance engineers and testers. Workers who have significant experience and a bachelor's or graduate degree can qualify for positions such as computer network and database architect, computer and information research scientist, computer and information systems manager, software developer, or database architect. Is a career in IT for you? Keep these points in mind. In an industry that changes and upgrades constantly, workers must be willing to learn new software, coding languages, and other technologies on an ongoing basis. Remote or work from home opportunities are more common in IT than perhaps any other fields. While the majority of IT work is done in front of a computer screen, some fields also involve hands-on work to fix and maintain equipment. Attention to detail, flexibility, and cooperation are key aspects of many IT careers.
All right. So does that sound juicy to anybody? Does that help out?
It does. It does.
Yes. So again, we do mention, we're talking about the US. In this case, we didn't really mention the US, but we mentioned a few things. With IT, you can work remotely. You can work anywhere in the world. Okay. Just like how we are all connected right now. All you need is a dedicated internet connection. Many of our brothers and sisters come to the US or go abroad and are interested in making money immediately, instantly. So they jump into the healthcare field. A little story about me: when I came to the US, I was actually coming to study a master's in nursing. But when I got in, I was required to go through a lot of prerequisite courses. So I refused. I told them, I think my education from UB is hard enough for me to be able to carry on. I'm not going to go through these courses. So I told them I'm going to go on my second option, which is IT. So instead, I did a master's in information systems. But then, a lot of people that I look up to as people to give me advice, they requested, hey, you are very good in what you do. I had a bachelor's degree in microbiology and life sciences from UB. You should, try becoming a doctor, a nurse. You're going to make a lot of money and so on. But it's not something you enjoy, okay? I enjoyed spending time on the computer. That's one thing too. If you're going to be interested in a career in IT, you should be comfortable on the keyboard. If you're scared to press keys on the keyboard, you need to learn how to get comfortable. Even if it's just typing a message, typing story about your life or a letter or replying emails, get used to it. Make yourself comfortable, because when you land that job and you're scared to type, you're using one finger to type, and it makes everybody see that, you don't have that experience that you so well showed in your resume. So get comfortable with this. Don't be worried about, what the future holds. Once you pick your sweet spot, you can go ahead from there. Okay. So
Yes.
some of the things you can do, there are lots of jobs in IT, as they've already said, and you can create your own niche. One thing that I didn't mention, I know Melvin did say that I listed it in order of importance. I think it actually listed in alphabetical order. Okay, that was C all the way, and then you get to I, N, S, and W. But one of my favorite is the web developer, because most of these other occupations, as a research scientist, someone probably has to employ you, right? As a network architect, someone needs to call you to come and set up their network. Same as a programmer. So as a programmer and information systems, security analyst, and so on, database, we don't have a database. You need someone to call you to come and manage their database. But as a web developer, everybody needs a website. You don't need to work for a particular company. You can be an entrepreneur. You can decide to say, you know what, I'm going to learn this. I'm going to reach out to all the hotels in Cameroon and show them my portfolio. These are some of the websites I've built. Are you guys interested in building a website? They'll give you a quote, or you can give them a quote and, do some kind of proposal. If that's good, it's good and fine. You can reach out to each of the councils, maybe the mayor's office, and tell them you're interested in doing this. Think about all the businesses that eventually have to go online, because we are definitely getting there to that digital age. So you're never going to be short of opportunities. And the more you do, the more experience you gain, the easier it gets for you to do these things. And you're not going to be lacking. You can still do it as a side job, as a side hustle. I did it for the longest time in my career. I still do it today. I get people calling me like, hey, can you design me a website? I tell them, okay, if you're serious about it, get all your content. We'll sit down and get it done 2 weeks. Or if you need it urgently, there's a different price tag. If you don't really care, you want to take 1 month, that's fine. Once you set these standards, you can easily work just like that. Again, digital designers. I did mention that I'm on a trip. I'm not actually at home. I'm visiting a friend who lost a brother. I reached out to him. Do you need a flyer for the funeral? So created a flyer and a program. Those things are skills that have been developed over time. I have a younger sister who is graduating, and she reached out to me, big bro, I need a flyer for my graduation. I can probably get one done in a couple hours, maybe in 30 minutes. So when you build all of this, if I put it together, I'm going to be able to show that as, hey, here is my portfolio. Even if it's not related to the job, you can sell yourself that, hey, you're a hardworking person, you haven't been to school all these years, but because you were not in school, you learned these other skills on the side, and here is a portfolio to show all the different things you did. So does that make sense?
A lot of things.
Awesome. So yes, that gives us a good information. And unfortunately, I really wanted us to talk about the 10 things to know before getting into IT. But I talked about some of them. You have to be comfortable with a computer. In some cases, you have to work long hours when you're doing it. As a database administrator, if the database goes down, they'll call you to come in and, get things done. Coming in again doesn't mean you have to go there physically. They might just need you to wake up, get your laptop and connect to your internet at home and do a few tests and, restore the backup or something like that. Because each moment that the system is down, you're losing money, your company is losing money. So you have to be comfortable with that. You have to be comfortable with stress too. Sometimes it might get stressful. If the system goes down, everybody is on you and like, hey, can you get this back up, and so on and so forth. You have to also be willing to learn all the time, because we all know technology changes so fast. 10 years ago, we just had a mobile phone. Nobody is even thinking about that right now. But there's so much information out there, things are spinning so fast that we have to be able to say, you have to learn. The programming language that's selling today might not be even available in 10 years to come. Like Visual Basic and so on and so forth. Those are must know programming languages 10 years ago. But today, you need to know Java, Python, C#, and so on and so forth. So you have to be willing to learn new things. It's mostly the case in other fields. But yeah, having this in your back pocket is very powerful. You should be able to adapt in many, many situations. Sounds good?
Yes.
All right. So I think we took a little more time than I expected in that case. So let's move on to the next part, which is talking about understanding learning paths. Okay. So there are 3 learning paths again. Okay, let's look at it this way. Let's picture a tree. A tree has a path that's going up as a stem. You can have 3 branches. One branch would be the technology branch. Another branch would be the business and finance branch. And another branch would be leadership and management branch. But each of these branches has 3 tracks. I know I said 3, but there's 4 on there. The 3 tracks are the fundamentals track, the information track, and the skills track. I'll talk about them again in details shortly. But in all of these 3 tracks, you have an innovation track that is added on top at the end of each. So fundamentals track actually goes all the way. You learn the fundamentals, and then from there, you start creating stuff about the fundamentals. You gather information, and then you start creating information. You learn skills, and then you start creating skills or innovating your skills. And that's what changes you from being competent in all of these first 3 skills to becoming an expert. But at the end of the day, what is the true cost of learning? It's not the amount of money. It's not the school that you go to. It's not the courses that you have. It's not your certificate. It is time. All of us have finite time. All of us, everybody in this world has 24 hours a day. You have to be able to sacrifice some amount of time, maybe daily or weekly. If you say you're going to use 2 hours a week to learn something new, I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at a month or a year, you must have used quite considerable time, compared to, not utilizing your time judiciously. Now, if you use your time 8 hours a day to learn something that you don't really need, then that's costing you a lot. But rather, if you use 3 hours a day 3 hours a week, 4 hours a week to learn something that you can implement and utilize right now or in future, then you're maximizing your returns. So let's talk about those learning paths again in detail. So there are 3 main parts, okay? The first 3 tracks are the fundamentals part. What is this? This is learning the things or the process about the information. When you help learn and process information, which is just the basic information, for instance, what are the different parts of a computer? You need to learn these things and know how the computer works before you start fast tracking to learn all the new jargons that are just starting up, okay? So if you learn about the fundamentals, this is what you actually learn. Most schools actually teach this, but then you can also learn this on your own. If you go to each of the websites for the schools, you can see that if you need to get this degree, you need to learn these courses. Some of the courses even have the different topics. If you go into 3 or 4 schools and you see that the course actually repeats itself often, then you know that is a fundamental course. So regardless of what programming language you have to learn what is a variable, what are the syntaxes, what's the data type, those are standard. No matter which language you want to learn in life, you have to learn subject, object, and verb. And then now you start implementing it in each of those languages. If you don't understand what a verb is, if you don't understand what a noun is, if you don't understand what a subject or an object is, you will not be able to understand any language, English or French. But if you know that, okay, a verb, you can conjugate a verb. You conjugate a verb in English, you conjugate a verb in French, in any other language too, right? You have present, past, future. It's the same in every language. So those are the basics. Those are the fundamentals. Once you learn that, you can apply it across the board. And that information is never going to be obsolete. It's never going to die. Tomorrow, nobody is going to tell me that we don't use verbs anymore in English. We're always going to use verbs in English. We're always going to use verbs in French. We're always going to have nouns. We're always going to capitalize our nouns, all those basic stuff. They might sound mundane, but if you learn those, you can easily build on them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so for instance, if you're interested in getting into cybersecurity, you need to understand what a network is. If you learn what networks are, you understand how networks work, then boom, anybody can change cybersecurity however they want to change it. You're still going to be on top of your game and you can easily pick it up just like that. Okay. If you wanted to learn about web development, you have to learn the basic building blocks, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. If you learn how to write HTML, you're always going to have that information. If you understand how the network works, how the internet works, the internet needs a URL to take you to the website. It needs HTTP, which is a protocol to transfer information from your computer to the server and back to you. And it also needs the resources, the documents that have been written. Once you understand that, you can implement it in any other way out there, okay? So knowing the fundamentals is key. Most people skip the fundamentals and they jump into information. What is information? Information is knowledge that is specific to solve a particular problem. For instance, I don't really know how a car works, but let's say my car cannot start and I go on Google, my car is not starting, what do I do? It tells me what exactly I should do. Maybe you should add petrol in the tank. I go and add petrol in the tank, the car starts. I really don't understand the fundamentals. Why did that work? Okay, so it helps you to solve a specific problem, but then you don't even know because we have a problem right now because there is so much information out there. Back in the days, if you had a problem with your car not starting, you never knew where to find that information from. That was the main problem. Information was scarce, few and far in between. Right now, any of us can find out any information just like that. The cost of information is, I don't want to say free, it's almost free, okay? If anybody can ask a random question, all we have to do is go and search. But the problem is searching online is like having all the books in the library, tearing all the pages and scattering them in the room, and then sitting on top and finding out okay, which of them is the useful one? Because how do you know? If you search online and I said, for your car to start, you should put water in the engine. Someone else will say for your car to start, you should open the door and bang it again. Anybody can write anything online. Now it's up to you to sift through that information and say which one is going to work. You might be lucky, the first one will work. You might be unlucky. I tell you to take water and pour it inside a petrol tank. You instead end up ruining your car more. So the information that is specific to a particular problem is, or the knowledge that is specific to a particular problem is what is information. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, but now think about it. If you already had the fundamentals knowledge and then you add information on there, would you not be better off if you did not have the fundamentals knowledge? So again, you want to have those fundamentals, because if I understand the fundamentals that water does not mix with petrol, and then I instead see that, somebody is telling me online on the information part that add water in your gas tank or in your petrol tank, with my fundamental knowledge, I'll know that that's wrong. I should be able to cancel it out. Okay. So fundamentals is the base. Knowledge then adds value to you, adds your value, and again, the key will be, how do you find that knowledge? How do you find that information? It becomes some kind of a skill. Speaking of skills, a skill track is the ability to use the knowledge to solve problems. This knowledge that you have acquired, to use it and solve problems. So, for instance, you have been able to fix how many cars? You have been able to get how many cars to start even after they couldn't. Obviously, it might be using different methods, in some cases the same method. So all of that put together would give you the fundamentals track, the information track, and the skills track. And the funny thing is, learning IT is not the same as learning other branches in life. What do I mean by this? With IT, the moment you start from the starting point all the way to the end, they tell you, congratulations. The next target is continuing all the way out there. So there is no specific start to end in IT that you have to learn. It's a continuous track. The moment you reach your finish line, they move the goalpost again, or they move the ending point again. You keep going and adding and adding. That is how the learning path actually works with IT. In some cases, you might be running through and getting to the finish line, and you see a deviation. Maybe you take that road and you end with a dead end. You realize that, okay, I went and learned this thing that I really didn't need to use. You come back to your track and continue where you're supposed to go to. In other cases, you might meander and then you go back to the front, but then you're going to gain another skill that you can add it to your portfolio or add it to your resume. Does that make sense? And
Yes.
any questions?
I have a worry.
Go ahead.
From all what you have said, it shows IT is not like a daily routine kind of stuff. It changes,
That
right?
is
It's not something that every day I come to the office, this is what I'm supposed to do, this one I know.
yes, that's very true. I'm not sure. Did I interrupt you? Go ahead. Finish your question.
So I want to find out that, does it change with time, or like every day there's something new to do, there's something new to do every day, or it's just as changes come up?
Very, very good question. So again, change is inevitable, right? Change is constant. That's the one thing we have to put in our mind. I think in many domains, not just IT. So for instance, back in 1995, I started learning how to use computers. Okay. All you needed to know was WordPerfect. Okay. And then you needed to use a diskette, floppy disk. Today, nobody even knows what people know what floppy disks are. No kid really knows what a floppy disk is. So that's how much change has taken place. But given, or granted, that's about 30 years difference. But looking between last year and this year, or 10 years ago and today, when we started using smartphones, BlackBerries was all everybody was using. Now take an example of Windows. If you're using Windows Office, let's say Microsoft Office, you're using Excel or Word, they update it every day. So when they update it, you also need to know how to do that, how to catch up with the new updates that have been done. Instead of, let me see, what's a simple example? Instead of installing software now on your computer, you can actually use it on the cloud, okay? So you have to brush up your skills. Normally, you would learn, say, in being a secretary is always going to do what they're supposed to do, but things will also change in the office. They need to adapt. In computer science, the fundamentals will always remain the same, right? But then you also need to be able to adapt to the new things that come up, the innovations that are being added onto. So your day at the office or every day is not going to be the same. Now, let me take an example of web development. I'm always going to use that because I think web development is something that pertains to US, Europe, Asia, and Africa as well. So if you had to develop a website back in 1995, you did not really have much problems because there was just one web browser, okay? If you can develop a website that works on Netscape, you're fine. But in the 2000s, if you had to develop a website, you have major issues. Why? Because each company started having its own web browser. So your website is going to look good on Internet Explorer, but bad on Safari, and also bad on Mozilla, but good on Google Chrome. So those were some of the challenges. You as an IT or someone in the IT career, you have to be able to adapt. Now you have to learn how to code and make sure that your website looks good on each one of these web browsers. But then go past 2010, all of these different companies that had different web browsers came together and said, we need to have a standard. Let's not give these developers too much work. Now you're able to develop, if you're going to develop a website, you didn't have to worry about making it work for each of them. You develop one website, it works well on each browser, okay? Everything is good and fine, you're relaxing and making your money. Now, almost at the end of 2000s, around 2008, we started having mobile phones. Now you have your problem is, how do you make your website to be looking good on a cell phone? You have to be able to adapt, go back again to the learning board. That's what I mean by you would learn, and then you think you have reached the finish point because of all the changes in IT, you have to learn again, get to the next finish point, and so on and so forth. So learning has to be something that you're comfortable with, okay? It's not learning something totally new, but you're building onto what you already knew. Even though you've learned 3 different steps, if somebody needs to catch up to you, that person has to go to the back and start learning each one of those before they'll get as good as you are. They're not going to have that experience that you've had all along. So definitely you're more marketable than they are, okay? Now you're able to build websites that look good on a cell phone, and then tablets started emerging. You have to be able to build websites that work too on tablets, okay? So those are some of the changes that take place that in an IT career, you have to be able to adapt to them. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions? All right. So let's proceed. Let's see what else I have in here. So these are the different levels, the different skills that we talked about. Fundamentals. Once you learn your fundamentals, those things will last forever, okay? They're not going to change. But information is going to change rapidly. It's going to actually be expired. It's going to expire rapidly because what was true, for instance, how do you create a website? If you go and check how do you create a website on Google and you go and open a page that was created in 1990, trust me, that's not going to help you as much. You need to open a page that was created yesterday or at least this year, if not this month. Now, when you look at it, you know that, okay, I'm creating a website. I have to think that my website should be responsive. So maybe I need to test it out and open it on a tablet. Does it look good? Open it on a cell phone. Does it look okay? And then open it on a tablet or laptop rather, or desktop. If it looks good in all 3 of them, then maybe it's good, okay? So again, your skills now it actually varies. What are your skills built on? If your skills are built on fundamentals, they're always going to last forever. But if your skills are built on the information track, then it's also going to be rapidly obsolete. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Now, talking about those three different tracks, you actually build on these three tracks with your innovation. Once you've learned and gotten all the way there, you should be able to innovate. Now, if somebody is hiring you, these are the three things that they might be looking at. You know, after going through your resume, going through the interview, we realize that your fundamentals knowledge is at this level, your information knowledge is at that level, your skills knowledge is at this level. So maybe comparing it with someone else's knowledge, if they're very good at fundamentals, very good at information, and they've shown that they have many skills, and so we can actually go ahead and tell them, hey, you actually get this job because based on all of that. Does that answer? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Oh, please come again. I did not understand. The last
So what I was explaining is that if you actually have an interview with someone, you want to make sure that you check your fundamental knowledge of that job that you're actually applying for. Also check your information and your skills. So if I was to interview 3 or 4 candidates, I would most likely be giving the job to the person that has the most fundamentals knowledge, because I know that knowledge is never going to expire, right? And also give it to someone that has the most skills, because they have shown that they can actually do these things and not just talk about them or learn them, because learning is easy. Learning is easy, and or learning about the information track is easy, but it's also going to be obsolete very soon. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, awesome. But then each one of those 3 tracks are involved in the 3 branches that we're talking about. So you on the workforce, you are the technology branch. This technology branch includes, if you can see closely, maybe I should make this bigger. The technology branch includes the fundamentals track. It also includes the information track, and also includes the skills track. Based on all of that, you can learn and become the workforce. You know, your career is going to survive for sure, and you're going to be a technology strategist. But then you'll be working for someone. Maybe you need to follow another path where you're going to get into an entrepreneurship. Let's say you own your own business or you own your own finance case. So you want to become an entrepreneur. Take, for instance, in my case, I've gone ahead and learned all this information that I need to know to become a web developer. Now I start developing my own websites on my own. So those are soft skills. The technology branch teaches you the hardcore skills. Those, again, they're good for your career, and it's going to help you survive in as a technologist. The soft skills is going to help you survive in as an entrepreneur, and also in leadership and management. So you want to be able to have, there are some things that, you know, you don't really teach in class. How to communicate, you know, how to cooperate, you know, how to be able to have this leadership and management skills. It is very important. Not necessarily if you don't want to be promoted, you don't want to be a manager, you still need these skills, because it helps you in problem solving. And it's going to help you out to get into leadership and management for developers, because they do need those people to also help them prosper. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can get yourself into all of those. So finally, to round up what we've been talking about, the 3 distinct tracks: learning the fundamentals. Okay, just like Melvis asked, where do we start? You want to focus on learning your fundamentals. You want to understand how to get information, knowing how to search it, knowing how to sift through it, how to find out what's important, and then actually doing these things. Don't just listen and watch a YouTube video. Actually get your hands dirty. Try to get it done. From there, you're going to get the experience the best way. And that makes it different from someone who is an expert and someone who is a beginner, is that the beginner is going to get the job done. They're going to do all kinds of trial and error. They'll jam, use all the resources available to get it done. But an expert is going to get it done very quickly and very efficiently. And their solution is going to last. A beginner is going to probably do patch and join. Think about giving your car to an expert mechanic and a beginner mechanic. The moment you give it to a beginner mechanic because he was cheap, you will be going back to that mechanic every week. But if you give it to an expert mechanic, if you know that somebody did the job very good, it's because you don't see them again. If you go to a doctor and see him once and you don't see that doctor again, that means that doctor did a very good job. But if you go to the doctor, tomorrow you're back at that doctor, the next day you're back at that doctor, there's something wrong. You need to find another doctor. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yes, yes.
Awesome. So 3 different branches, as we pointed out: the technology branch that contains all of these, the business and finance branch, own your own business. There are so many businesses in Cameroon. Cameroon is not even ripe yet. It's just getting ripe. If Cameroon was a mango, Cameroon would be starting mango. I don't know anybody that likes starting mango, but I really like it. Cut oil as starting mango, now keep it. But by the time it ripes, those people that are going to look for ripe mango, birds have already eaten all those mangoes. The mangoes have fallen and broken. But you're starting mango that you have harvested ahead of time. Set up your business. And all these things that you learn in IT, they are going to help you innovate your business, propagate your business. You have competitive edge compared to other people out there. If you're going to do buy and seller, and you're doing buy and seller and only going to the market on, limit Tuesdays or on Fridays, that's where you're limited. But if I'm doing buy and seller and I take pictures of all the clothes that I'm buying and selling and I put online, that means every day is my market day. And if I'm using technology, maybe you can send me money through Momo or through Cash App. You put it on there. I can also deliver your clothes. You tell me, okay, that clothes fine, that clothes fine. I bring the 5 clothes that you like. You check it out, you pay, I go ahead. I don't have to wait for Tuesday and Friday because I'm using all my knowledge that I've learned from technology to be able to promote my business and also build finances. Then leadership and management skills come now into how do you interact with people? How do you communicate with people? What are the things people need to hear? How do you cooperate with people to be able to build those skills and make them comfortable and build your clientele? Okay. So it's not only for you to learn IT to work under an IT company. Learn it and also encourage your own business, build your entrepreneurship, and so on and so forth. Sounds good?
Yeah, it does.
All right, what questions do we have? I know we've gone over 1 hour. I was hoping that we'll be able to get everything done within the hour, but I think the story does fit today. Steve Mandola from Banda. All right, so let me reduce the size, it's too big. All right, so the next thing that we need to talk about, we still have 2 things to talk about: categorizing knowledge, skills, and practice. Okay, so the 7 different things when it comes to skills and practice that we need to talk about is fundamentals, right? You go to school to learn the fundamentals. You go to school to gather information. You go to school to build your skills. You go to school for curation, support, certification, and expertise. That is how things used to work in the past, right? Before the internet age, before the age of information. But now we don't need to go to school to get all of that information, fundamentals, skills, curation, support, certification, and expertise. Now you can do that on your own. Is everybody in accordance with me? Do you think I'm saying the truth here or no?
Yes, it's true. That's true.
Yeah, because you can use YouTube, you can use online courses and so on to gather all your fundamentals. So that's what you get, searching information, you can get it, but then you have to be able to decide which of them is good content and which is not. Okay. So there are different many facets of learning on your own right now. On your own, you can go ahead and gather information, but know how to do it. There are ways in which you can search information effectively. Check the date that the information was created. Check if it's valid information, if it's just a joke or if it's accurate. Okay. You can build your skills. Look at these tutorials. Go in and do, what you need to do. Back in the days, you needed to have a server and all of those tools and things that only schools could afford them. But now you have the cloud. You can get a server on the cloud. You can download a lot of applications that you couldn't utilize back then. In 1995 or in 2000, there was no way I could get all these different software, but now you can actually have a database installed on your computer to learn how to do database administration. Okay. Now, curation is being able to identify or organize your information in a particular way. Curation, again, used to be done by schools. So when you go into learn how to become a computer science or IT domain, they already have this list of courses that you need to take. Those lists of courses have been curated. Another source of curation could be a book. When you decide to buy a book about a particular subject, that book has different chapters. Those chapters are curations because the person, the author of that book, the person that created the curriculum for that class online or in school, they have actually thought about it and realized that this will be the best order of you learning all these things. So if you look at 3-4 different books on a particular subject, and you see that particular topics are common amongst them, those are the topics that are your fundamentals that you need to learn. If you gather all that information, maybe one book is easier for you to read than the other one. You get all those fundamentals, build on them, pack them up, then the information you gather from there is never going to expire. You should be good. Where do you get support? You have experts in the field. Go online, join these communities, ask questions. Once you ask questions, people are really willing to learn, to help out. Okay. Certifications, you don't actually have to go to school now to get your certification. You can even do your certification online. There are many ways that I can show you how to get certified online. Even on LinkedIn, LinkedIn has certifications that you can take. Okay. And it's going to be right there on your LinkedIn profile. I showed you my LinkedIn profile. There are lots of certifications that I have on there. If you go on there and see after experience, education, these are licenses and certification. These are all licenses and certifications that I have from LinkedIn. Some of them way back when, some of them recent, about 130 of them so far. But yeah, you can go in there and take quizzes, and it's going to show up on your profile that you actually know these things. By then, you don't need to answer those questions. It shows that you have done your job, you have looked at these things, you're good at this, and people can actually, reach out to you to, if I open my email or my messaging, they're all recruiters reaching out, asking, do you want to do this? So it's up to you now at that point to pick and choose. I like this, I don't like that, I want this, I don't want that. So go out there, get all those things that you need, and then you build on your expertise. When you start answering questions, you start helping other people out. It shows that you're an expert in your field. You will get there eventually. It's going to take some time. It's going to take a lot of hard work from you. It's not going to be easy, but I can guarantee you it's going to taste very sweet once you get there. Okay. So on your own, you can do everything that the school used to do because everything is at your disposal. You have the internet. The only thing that's limiting, as we've said before, the only true cost is your time. If you use your time valuably, you should be able to learn your fundamentals. You should be able to go search for information. You should be able to build your skills. You should be able to get curated material, or you can do your own curation. You should be able to get support. I don't think anybody will ever reach out to me with a question and I would ignore them and not give them an answer. Once you get your certification, again, it gives you that sense of achievement. It shows that in this domain, this guy is really good. He knows what he's doing and what has to be done. and then you become an expert. But then if you're competent at something, you don't really need to be an expert. An expert are usually those people that are like consultants, people that, companies will call on them to, hey, give me this or come in and teach this and do that and so on. But then being competent, you're fine with where you are. You just do what you do more efficiently than someone who is a beginner. Sounds good?
Hello.
Questions, concerns?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go for it.
You spoke about getting information. You need to, there's some things you need to check on the internet to know which information is actually good. You mentioned the date. When you see the date, is it like an earlier date or a later date? Because some information they post, like today I can go online, if I'm searching for something, I'll see 1st of January 2022. Is it that it has been updated and is good, or it's a later date that is better?
Okay, very, very good question. You need the most recent, again, depending on the question that you're trying to find, the information. If I need information on current events, I need to get the current date, right? So for instance, let's just try doing this. Let's say how to cook fufu, right? I'm going to search for that online, and then it gives me all these videos. This is how to cook fufu in 2021. This is how to cook fufu in 2020. This is how to cook fufu in 2019. It's up to me now to decide which of them is accurate and okay for me. If you look at the different web pages, this page was created on February 5th, 2021. This was February 17, 2021, and so on and so forth. The ones that don't have dates, they're going to be questionable, okay? So that's an example. Now, this person had one that was created in 2017. Do I want a current one? Do I want an old one? Does that help out in answering your question?
Okay, so the earlier one, the new one, is more preferable.
Yes, it's more accurate. Again, in IT, for instance, how to, let's say, build a website. If I'm going to say how to build a website, again, there are different answers and different times. This is how to build a website in 2022, just as it says in its title. But then there are probably going to be older versions. These are 10 key steps of building a website. That was in 2019. Maybe there have been some changes that have taken place between 2019 to 2022. It's 3 years. It's a lifetime in IT. So we probably do not want to go ahead and follow these 10 steps. We're going to use the more recent steps. Make sense?
Okay.
Awesome. Very, very good question. Any other questions? No questions? So again, finally, to round up, let's see if we can get this done in 5-8 minutes. There are a few things that we need to keep up with in IT. Really, you cannot keep up with IT. Let's just be frank, because the speed at which things are changing, you just have to pick what you want to catch up with, because there's no way I can catch up with cybersecurity, database, web development, all of that at the same time. I have to pick my niche, pick one branch and follow it, or pick one topic and follow it, okay? So what is it that you need to catch up with? Maybe there are some things that, might be very sweet today. They're all important. I mean, like back in the days, we had 3D TV. Everybody was excited. Oh, 3D TV, you wear your eyeglasses and you see everything in 3D. Today, where are they with the 3D TV? If you decided that, you know what, you wanted to keep up with IT, you wanted to become a 3D TV IT or technician, you want to be fixing only 3D TVs or maintaining them and so on and so forth, you'll be out of business right now. So you want to make sure that you start with the obvious, you progress with your promotion, and then you mention that time factor. I cannot overemphasize, time is the most important currency, okay? And you want to be able to get into a field. You want to keep up with something that you can pivot. What do I mean? Something that when you learn, you can actually change direction and learn more stuff connected to it. If we're getting into 3D TVs, it's more or less a dead end because from there we can't really change and do anything else. Okay. But if I decide, okay, you know what, I'm going to learn networking. From when I get to networking, I know I can either decide to do cybersecurity, or I can maybe get into databases, or maybe get into network architecture. Okay. So that's something that has different endpoints. You want to keep all your options open. If you're going to open a door that's going to a dead end, you'll end up turning and coming back. But you want to open a door that's going to a corridor. When you take that door that goes into a corridor, you have different options along the way that you can decide how you want to go into. Okay. So when do you want to keep up with technology? Again, beware of the hype. You know, most people say, oh, this is the sweetest thing, this is the best thing, let's jump into it. You know, but then you want to find the main correct time to keep up. Sometimes, you know, there's actually a curve that is being drawn, and you know, most people, innovators, are the first early adapters to technology. Eventually, it reaches a stage that everybody accepts it, and then the mainstream hits on it, and then finally it dies off. Okay. But now we also talk about how do you keep up with IT? We've talked about your style. Decide on which style that you want to use to learn. Again, always spend your time wisely. And finally, who do you want to compete against, or how keeping up with IT again, who do you want to compete against? In this case, I would say you are your best competition. Okay. Obviously, you want to compete against what others are doing, but at the end of the day, you want to become better than where you are right now. Okay. So you want to also keep up in the long term. You don't want to keep up just between today and tomorrow. Maybe get something in the back of your pocket that you know is going to be valuable to you at some point in time in future. And then make sure you emphasize with what is under the hood, the most basic and fundamental thing. You don't want to be the one that's an expert in a field, but you don't know the fundamentals of it, because that's going to make you look really bad in front of others, your manager, yourself, and all your other teammates. Okay, sounds good.
Mhm.
Any questions, comments, concerns? Do we feel like we've addressed everything that we needed to talk about today? You know, defining a resume, the CV, portfolio, the differences between them, talking about those computer and IT occupations, understanding learning paths, categorizing knowledge, skills, and practice, and also keeping up with IT.
Yes, I think we've done all of that.
All right, so I think at this juncture, it's almost 1:30 p.m. here, which means it's almost 6:30 p.m. in Cameroon.
Yes.
I would go ahead and play this last video for you guys. I really don't want to do it, but it's a good one to know, okay? So let's get into this, and then after that, we can call it a day if anybody does not come up with any questions. So keep thinking. If you have any questions, then you can let me know and we can address them, or you can reach out to me later on. But let's watch this video real quick.
Hello, everyone. In this video, I'm going to talk about the top 10 things that you should know before getting into the information technology business. This is based on my over 30-year career, and I've worked as a programmer, a software development manager, a software architect, and then finally as an IT executive. So based on my experiences, I'll tell you both the good and the bad about being in the information technology business. So let's go ahead and get started. So to be fair, I've divided this video into two parts. In the first part, I'll talk about the good or the benefits of being in the IT business. And the second part, maybe I'll talk about some of the limitations or the not so good about being in the IT business. So let's go ahead and start and look at the advantages first. The first benefit that we'll look at is being in the IT business affords you a very good salary. Programmers, architects, DevOps engineers, cloud engineers, and IT managers all command very good salaries. Programmer salaries average $105,000 a year, software architects $138,000, and software engineering managers average over $137,000. I should note this is for the US, and I got these statistics from Indeed.com, but you can get the idea that these are very good paying jobs. So let's go ahead and look at the next benefit. The next benefit about being in the IT business is, particularly right now, there is a shortage of trained people to work in the information technology business. So for example, if you look at cloud computing positions, there are over 50,000 cloud computing positions available in the US today, and they're available from 3,701 employers and represent 101,913 open positions worldwide today. So I got this out of Forbes. It doesn't take long to look around to see how many open jobs there are in the information technology business. So this is a terrific time to go into this business because of the high demand. So let's go ahead and look at another advantage of being in the information technology business. Another terrific benefit about being in the information technology business is mobility. And that is, after you've mastered some core IT skills, or perhaps a programming language or a cloud computing platform, it's fairly easy to move to another company that uses the same hardware and software platform. So if you get stuck in a terrible job, if you're well trained and you have some experiences, it's pretty easy to move to another company that has a similar type of technology. So that's another benefit, is you won't get stuck maybe in a dead-end job. If you have some skills, you have the ability to move to another company that perhaps has a better environment. So let's go ahead and look at yet one more benefit. Another advantage is many IT companies now support remote work, and so you can work from home. This is a great advantage in that you can save a large amount of time and money. And IT jobs are particularly well suited for working from home. So the only thing you'll probably need is a high-speed internet connection and some type of computing equipment so that you can do your job remotely. But this is a huge advantage. It will save you that long, arduous commute every day. And trust me, I now work at home and I don't miss commuting to work. It's a fantastic opportunity. And this is another huge advantage of many IT jobs. So let's go ahead and look at our last advantage. The last advantage I'll talk about is business knowledge. Since you're involved perhaps in programming or maybe support of a system in terms of DevOps or operational support, you'll be in the position to really understand how the business operates. Many IT departments support mission critical systems that are really the core of how the company does business. And this knowledge is very valuable, and it can lead to a promotion or another opportunity in the company. Since you can really acquire that detailed business knowledge, you really might become the go-to expert on how a lot of these business processes really function on a day-to-day basis. So let's go ahead and move on to the next part. Okay, so now we got the good out of the way. Let's look at maybe the not so good. Sounds pretty good so far. Great salary, high demand, you can move around, you can work at home, all great things, but like all good things, there's also some drawbacks as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at what some of the potential drawbacks of working in the information technology business might be. The first area I'll talk about, the limitation or maybe a negative part of the business, are tight deadlines. Deadlines around IT projects can be critical to the success of the company. And some projects might be driven by legislative deadlines that really can't be changed. Your industry might be regulated in some type of way, and they may have a certain date that you have to implement something by. So fines or penalties might be involved for missing these types of deadlines. And all of these things can lead to a very high level of stress. Some people are better at dealing this than others, but tight deadlines and that focus around getting something out the door on time can lead to a high amount of stress. So let's go ahead and maybe talk about something else that might be a limiting factor for you in the IT business. Another potentially negative factor with the information technology business is the potential for very long work hours. To go along with those tight deadlines might be a lot of hours to meet those deadlines, particularly when the project's coming to an end. And if you work in an IT support position, you'll probably have to work long hours fixing problems if there are any types of service outages. Most hardware and software upgrades also happen on off hours, and many times this is on weekends or holidays, and the very time where you don't want to be working. So if you're not really up for long hours, this is probably not a good business for you. So particularly at the end of projects, I've worked for startup companies and worked some ridiculously long hours and have spent the night at work many times. So So if long hours are not in it for you, then this is probably not the right business for you. Let's go ahead and look at some other things that are typical of a particular environment in the IT business. Another thing that you'll have to learn in the IT business is how to deal with change. The IT business is constantly changing, and you'll need to adapt to that change. And the pace of change is continuing to increase. You'll need ongoing training to adapt to all of this change. So certifications, languages are changing, people are migrating to the cloud. All of this represents a ton of new technology, and you'll need to continually update your certifications throughout your career to remain competitive. And this can be a challenge for a lot of people. Sometimes people go into this business and they master one type of technology, like a mainframe type of technology, or they become a COBOL programmer years ago, and they simply don't want to change to the new platforms. But this is inevitable in this business as things are changing very rapidly. So you'll have to keep up with that. So it's something else to consider, whether you're adaptable to change or not. So let's go ahead and look at the next area. The next area I'll talk about is stress. So working with mission critical applications is a stressful job. Many of these systems deal with large amounts of customer and a large amount of money. And so when these types of systems go down, you'll be called in to work on these production problems until they're resolved. And most of the time, these systems have a ton of visibility. So don't be surprised if senior management members, the CEO himself or herself is involved in whatever happens with these system problems. So if you don't really like that kind of exposure, again, this is a limiting factor, but many times when you work on these systems, it really is working on a tightrope without a net. So it can be very difficult and very stressful in peak situations, particularly if something has been hacked into or a service or a program is down for an extended period of time. So let's go ahead and look at one more area. All of these limiting factors can lead to burnout. So if you're working lots of long hours and you have prolonged periods of high stress, it really can lead to a career burnout. And really it leads somebody to find a secondary career or something that they want to move into after 20, 10 or 20 or 30 years in the IT business. And so my advice to you is to develop some secondary skills along the way that you can transition to a new career if and when you need to. I've really enjoyed my career in the information technology business, but after 30 years, I've moved more into the education side of things and more out of the production side of supporting mission critical systems. And I'm happy that I did both, but I'm glad that I developed some secondary skills along the way. So I had the option to do some other things later on in my career when I was maybe not so fond of being under constant amount of stress. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much for your interest in this video. I hope it's given you a realistic look at what a career in
All right, so I think we're gonna wrap up there. And I hope that video was helpful to you as well. What questions do we have before we call it a day?
So that video, it actually just summarized what you already said, right? Everything I was just like a recap of.
Exactly, that was a good recap of everything we've talked about today. You know, the jobs, the different ways of learning, keeping up with IT, the good, the bad, the ugly, right?
Yeah. So it really sounds good though, especially for those who are already in the field. So it just gets me thinking when.
Yeah, you know, there's a saying, I can't remember the exact words, that whatever you don't start today, it's going to be too late. So starting today is way better than starting tomorrow. Starting today is way better than starting next week. Rather than thinking about, you know, you could have started before, trust me, there are some skills that you have in the past that once you get into IT, you're going to refine those skills. And no matter someone else who has been in IT for 30, 50 years, they don't have the skills that you had before. You're going to be able to utilize that to merge it and become better at what you're doing. You know, so for instance, at where I work right now, we usually get people from the business that have business knowledge and train them how to code, for instance, train them in different areas in IT. Those people actually excel better than those who are just coming straight up for IT, because They understand the business knowledge. Let's say, for instance, a headmaster trying to get into IT, the headmaster already understands how the school system works. Once they learn IT, they implement that IT in the school system, it actually explodes. It's a major revelation. But someone else that's just brand new learning IT, going now to learn education now or the education system will be challenging for them. So IT does not only have to be a standalone, you can use it side by side with what you know. Someone who is in the finance industry, they already know how the banking system works, but they don't have any IT knowledge. If they get into IT now, they use their banking knowledge with IT, it's going to make them stand out very clearly compared to those that are just IT or those that are just banking information. The same with healthcare. If you're in healthcare, you understand biology. That's one of the things that I did while I was in Colorado, computational biology, being able to understand how biological systems work and being able to understand programming and IT. You can actually write code that's going to make, biological processes better and faster, create robots and so on and so forth. Maybe even get into pharmaceuticals, where you can get all the research information, which was one of my thesis topics, getting all the research information, because every research that goes on, they're actually grabbing the data, the outcomes, everything, the papers, and dumping them, saving them in an archive. So if you can use your programming skills to actually query that archive and get sustainable information, for instance, you can go into the archive and check all the different genes that have been talked about in the archive, and also see how they are related to all the different diseases, which is one thing that I did. Then from there, you can say, okay, this gene always comes up when they're talking about malaria. There must be a relationship between the two. You get that kind of information and furnish it to pharmacy. The pharmacy then takes it and runs with it to be able to come up with tests to make sure that that relationship can actually be solidified. Is it a relationship where it's an increase or downward spiral? And then maybe if it's something that increased concentration of this gene or of these nutrients or of this product causes less malaria, then they can find out a way of getting supplements for that particular gene and then being able to reduce malaria and so on and so forth. So depending on whatever disease they're trying to cure, whatever illness or whatever, let's say Parkinson's disease, maybe it's related to a particular gene location and so on and so forth, they can do that research to be able to say, okay, we know with 95% confidence that this is what is going on. Obviously, there are going to be outliers. That's why it cannot be 100% confidence. And you can also use that in the food industry. We've noticed that everybody that eats plantain gets strong. Everybody that eats milk gets, very smart and so on. Then they get to start, making their products to be more suitable to their market. But then you have to understand how the food industry works and then use your IT skills to be able to merge the two of them. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It makes sense.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you all for taking time today. And this is being recorded for sure. So I'm going to go ahead and provide you the recording. Hopefully by Monday, since I'm out of town, when I get back to base, I'll put everything together and share it with you. Sounds good?
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. I enjoyed the class today.
Awesome. Thank you too. And our next class will be on hardware and software. So as you can see, based on our schedule, I tried to make sure, okay, we got into the introduction, we know what we're getting into, talk about the career parts, and then we start with the fundamentals, because as I pointed out all day today, fundamentals are key. What you're going to learn with hardware and software is going to be true for the rest of your life. It's going to be valid for any career in IT that you get into. Sounds good?
Good.
Awesome. Well, enjoy the rest of your weekend and see you next week.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Have a good day.